Many drives have found. If there is a fault during this time, the fault code will be displayed. If the open magazine lock fails, there is a mechanical way to get the magazine out. There is a screw in the middle hole. Rotate it clockwise, and it may take up to 20 turns. That will release the door mechanism so that you now can remove the cartridge manually without power. If you need to work on the door opening closing mechanism, it comes as a unit. The motor is not a separate through or field replaceable unit. To get to it, there are 3 screws on a cover plate. Do not touch the center screw that holds the cam assembly to the cover plate. Once that cover plate is removed and the cam assembly, just pull straight towards the left-hand side of the unit. Will allow you access to 2 screws at the top behind the cam assembly and 2 screws at the bottom. That will then allow the motor and bracket assembly to come out from the other side of the panel, and all you need to do then is disconnect the motor connector. However, on some units, there may not be a cutout on the bottom track to allow you access to those screws. If you do not have an offset Phillips screwdriver, you may need to remove the magazine track in the bottom of the unit. There are 6 screws holding it to the bottom of the case. The back 2 screws are accessible by getting the cable assembly out of the way, and there are 2 holes in this top brace allowing you direct access to the screws directly underneath the holes. The magazine presence sensor is located at the back bottom of the magazine track. The barcode reader scanner option simply is held on by 2 screws on the bracket on the shuttle assembly, and it has 1 plug. To remove the lead screw shuttle assembly, at the front of the unit there's a nut on the end of the lead screw, and there's a flat on the small projection of the lead screw assembly. By holding the lead screw with the wrench and holding the nut, the manual tells you to rotate the lead screw clockwise until the back bearing mount, or the back bearing, is cleared by the back end of the lead screw shaft. Once that is free and clear, then you can remove the single screw holding the guide bracket to the guide shaft on the shuttle assembly, and the whole assembly will lift out of the unit. To remove the main circuit card on the right panel of the unit, you must first remove the power supply. To remove the power supply, there are 2 screws holding it at the top on the panel that it is mounted to. Remove those 2 screws, remove the back plug. On the new style power supplies, you simply then tilt back to release the tabs holding it to the side plate and lift the power supply, clearing that up and out of the unit, being careful to unplug all the connectors. There are about 4 or 5 connectors and leads going to the front power switch. Once the power supply is removed, it will allow you clear access to the connectors on the circuit board. Now just lift the circuit board straight out. This is the new style power supply. On the old style power supply, there is a long bracket along this dimension with a hole in the center connecting the power supply. To remove the drive caddy assembly, which contains the drives, you must remove the connector to the power supply, the drive cables, 1 or 2 depending on the configuration, and the SCSI cable connectors. With the SCSI cables disconnected and the power supply cable as explained in the manual, remove the drive cable, remove the 2 top screws holding the top of the caddy assembly and the 2 long screws holding the caddy assembly to the bottom. The caddy and drive assembly should now lift straight out of the unit. As you're lifting the caddy assembly out, be careful of the door opening mechanism on the bottom of the caddy assembly, that you do not break it off. We have covered the removal and replacement of all the components in the LXB, the unit that contains the drives. The LXG and the LXC are much simpler to work on. As you can see, the LXC that we have here, the capacity unit, does not have any drives. Therefore, it allows you to have a 16 cartridge capacity magazine, since we don't have to worry about the drives. Everything else is identical: the board, the power supply, the door mechanism, the shuttle assembly, and the motor. The control panels have in common the ready light indicator in the upper left corner and the fault indicator in the upper right corner. The global and the control unit have only 3 indicators, whereas the base unit has 4. The third indicator on the global and the capacity unit deals with the mail slot and an alert on the global unit. On the base unit, the 2 indicators, one is for a drive fault, and since the base is the only one with the drive, that is the only one with that indicator. The fourth indicator is the use cleaner. That will light when the unit tries too many times to read and write. The express channel elevator assembly simply butts up to the back of each unit and is bolted on to the chassis assembly by the extender rods. The shuttle car receives the cartridge from any of the units and runs the length to the appropriate spot for putting into a drive or removing from a drive and replacing the cartridge to the global or the capacity unit.